Today on Steelers Talk, I'm going to tell you the number one thing that the Pittsburgh Steelers need to get right this season in order to become legitimate Super Bowl contenders here during the 2025 campaign. With a lot of new here, Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Jalen Ramsey, and more. If the Steelers can't get this one thing right this year, it is my opinion that the season is effectively over and the chances of the Steelers hoisting a record 7th Lombardi trophy essentially go out the window. Now, before we get into that number one thing that the Steelers need to get right this year, make sure you guys click that subscribe button and help us get to 90,000 subscribers here on Steelers Talk. We are so close. We are less than 1,000 subscribers away from getting there. And what you guys get when you click that subscribe button is you get daily Steelers videos every single day for free, in-depth videos breaking down the latest news and rumors surrounding the black and gold. Also, breaking news coverage every single time the con artist makes a big move. We go live at least twice a week during the week, and then we go live for every single Steelers game on our live watch parties, and it's all 100% free, guys. If you want the most extensive fan experience for Steelers fans anywhere here on YouTube, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And with that, the number one thing and the number one X factor that will determine just how good and how high the ceiling that the Steelers have on the season this year is the offensive line. All right, and this has been kind of the case over the last several seasons. The Steelers have had a tough time developing this offensive line and getting this group to a point where it can elevate the offense as a whole. And if you know anything about Arthur Smith, the Steelers offensive coordinator, and his offensive scheme, the foundation of Art's offense is the offensive line. It all starts up front for Arthur Smith because he wants to really establish the run, which sets up the play action, which sets up everything that this team wants to do on early downs to remain in rhythm and make chunk plays happen. And it is harsh, but it is true. And I think we have to admit this as Steelers fans, guys. The O-line has really held back this football team over the last several seasons. Now, obviously, there's other areas of this team that haven't been, up to snuff either. Quarterback play, offensive play calling, etc. But I think we can also agree that this offensive line has not been up to snuff either. And in fact, it's actually held back this team from ascending past where they have been in the most recent years, where it's been they're getting 9 or 10 wins, they're barely sneaking into the playoffs or just missing the playoffs, and then they don't really feel like a legitimate contender once they get into the postseason, followed swiftly by a first-round playoff exit. And guys, if this offensive line stinks again this year, the same thing is going to happen. The Pittsburgh Steelers ceiling, even with all these new additions with like Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf and Jalen Ramsey and all these guys that they added this offseason, if the offensive line here stinks, it's going to limit the offense, and which is going to limit the team. So if this offensive line can figure it out, it's going to be huge for the success of this football team. And I do think that a breakout year is possible, and if it happens, it could move mountains. It could take this team from being a super limited, low-ceiling type of team that might make the playoffs, but if they make it, they're going to lose in the first round of the playoffs against a legitimate title contender on the road, to a team that could potentially even win this division, and a team that could legitimately put together at least a couple of playoff wins and put themselves in the mix to hoist a Lombardi trophy this February. And there is a lot of talent on this group heading into the year. You got a first-round pick on both sides of the offensive line at tackle. Broderick Jones, a first-round pick out of Georgia, and Troy Fautanu, a first-round pick out of Washington, are your bookends. Obviously, lots of first-round pedigree there. Then you have a second-round pick at center at Jack Frazier, who already established himself as a top 10 center in the game just last year. Isaac Seumalo is an established veteran, super solid there at left guard. And then Mason McCormick was a fourth-round pick last year that this team really believes in, and I thought coming out had a really good physical profile. And there is, I think, top 10 O-line potential here with all the high draft picks that are here on this offensive line. However, there is a ton of question marks as well. So I think it's fair to point to the potential and the talent and the pedigree of this group, but I also think it's fair to point out some of the question marks. And it all starts with the man responsible for developing this group and these young players, and that is the offensive line coach, Pat Meyer. If you guys want to know my thoughts on Pat Meyer, when they decided to bring him back this offseason, I made a video on this channel called The Steelers Just Made the Worst Decision of the Offseason. So that tells you exactly how I feel about Pat Meyer and his ability or lack thereof to develop offensive linemen to this point in his Steelers tenure. But, he's not the only question mark either, right? You got Broderick Jones. He's transitioning back over to left tackle where he played his college and high school ball after playing his first 2 seasons here in Pittsburgh at right tackle and failing there. That is a massive question mark for this football team. I do think that he's looked better on the left side than he did on the right side, at least to start camp in the preseason to this point. But until we get to the regular season, we actually see what he looks like in full game action. With defenses throwing stunts at him and all that different stuff, we're not going to know for sure how good Broderick Jones is going to be this season, and that is a huge question mark. And then you get to Isaac Seumalo, who's very solid when he's on the field, but he's getting older, so the potential for regression is there. Plus, he started camp with an injury, which could concern some people out there in terms of him being able to stay healthy over the course of a 17-plus game NFL schedule. Then Zach Frazier, although he's really good as a blocker, he's had some snapping issues. He had some issues last year with Justin Fields with the snap exchanges. Once Russ was in there, things kind of got on the same page, which was good. But now Aaron Rodgers, Mason Rudolph, and even Skylar Thompson have had issues with Frazier snapping the football to them. It's been a lot of low snaps from Frazier. He needs to figure that out, and that is the question mark surrounding him. Mason McCormick is coming off a shaky year, and he's certainly a question mark heading into the year. We'll see how he does. Now, last year, I think to give him some grace, he was moving over from left guard to right guard, and he had to get used to the big transition from the competition he was playing there at South Dakota State versus the competition he was playing in the National Football League. So that was a big transition last year. He wasn't expected to play last season, guys. Remember, James Daniels was the starter here in Pittsburgh, and unfortunately, he had that massive injury, which forced McCormick to come in a little bit earlier than he was expected to have to play. But then you also have Troy Fautanu, who's also excellent on the field when he's on the field, but can that knee stay healthy? Multiple teams flagged his knee for injury concerns, which is why he fell to the Steelers where he did. I had a top 10 grade on him in terms of the film. His film at Washington was excellent, and I think the film that he's shown us in his really small sample size as a Pittsburgh Steeler has been really good. But the question is, can that knee stay healthy over the course of an entire NFL season? If he can't, I have no problems with him, but that is a lingering question mark when it comes to his game. And what's scary about all these question marks and all these health question marks specifically about some of these guys on the Steelers O-line is that the depth isn't exactly terrific. It's not like you've got very extensive starting caliber depth on this offensive line like you did have last year, right? You had Broderick Jones, who started the season as a backup. You had Mason McCormick, who started the season as a backup, and those guys were able to come in when guys like Nate Herbig got injured, when guys like James Daniels got injured, when guys like Troy Fautanu got injured. Your entire right side of the offensive line last year got injured, and this year that cannot happen with the depth that they have on this offensive line. I think Spencer Anderson is fine as a backup guard, and then I think that Calvin Anderson, when he gets back healthy, is a decent swing tackle. I think Andrus Peat is fine as a depth piece as well. But if you have the same amount of injuries on this offensive line as you had last year, this group is going to be even worse than they were last season in 2024. However, there are some options on the open market that they can still bring in. The team has brought in or is planning to bring in Dalton Reisner in free agency. So we'll see if they end up adding more depth to this group before the start of the season. But yeah, this team, plain and simply, I think the preseason games show this. If you have multiple injuries to the starting offensive line, this group is going to be in major trouble. So coming up here, I'm going to let you guys know Pittsburgh's Super Bowl formula. All right, I'm going to let you guys know what needs to happen for the Steelers to truly compete for a Lombardi Trophy this year. Now, before we get into that, I want to introduce you guys to somebody that's going to be very important to getting this team into title contention this year, and that is quarterback Aaron Rodgers. And you guys can get his jersey today when you use our link, chatsports.com/AR8. Time is running out to get an Aaron Rodgers jersey before the start of the 2025 NFL season. So if you guys want to get that job done right now, you can go chatsports.com/AR8. That link is down in the comments and description of today's show. And every time you click that link and somebody makes a purchase, we get part of the proceeds here at Chat Sports. So if you guys want to help us out today, chatsports.com/AR8 to get an Aaron Rodgers jersey in your closet before the season starts. So the next two dominoes for the Pittsburgh Steelers, if they can get the offensive line to play well, number one, the run game has to have a breakout season this year. And then after that, Aaron Rodgers has to have a bounce-back season as well. So obviously the offensive line needs to come first. You can't do either of these two things unless the offensive line is serviceable. But the run game and then the quarterback obviously need to work this year if you're going to beat teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, like the Buffalo Bills, like the Baltimore Ravens. This has to be a complete football team in order to really compete for a world championship. And I do think that Pittsburgh's run game is better than people think right now. I mean, there's a lot of negativity surrounding the run game here in Pittsburgh because, it hasn't been successful in the preseason games, and there's been a lot of negative reporting around the run game from Steelers training camp. But I think that it can be a little bit of a mirage because Jaylen Warren, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated running backs in the league. And I think that he looks better in an actual game in a live setting than he does in a practice setting. And what I mean by that is that in a practice setting, right, you go out there and first contact is first contact, play is over, right? Or at least that from the fans' perspective, he would have been tackled there, right? But one of the biggest values that Jaylen Warren brings as a player is his ability to make people miss. And, not every time that first contact person is going to get the tackle, right? Especially when we're talking about a guy like Jaylen Warren. So I think Jaylen is going to have another really good season this year if he can stay healthy. We've seen over the first 3 years of his career that he's one of the most efficient running backs in the league. He's top 10 in most efficiency categories for running backs. There's a reason why they let Najee Harris out the door and have made this guy their number one running back. And I think that he's going to have a really efficient season this year as this team's RB1. And another advantage that the Steelers have on the offensive line with the run blocking in particular with their run game is that they essentially are going to have 6 offensive linemen out there when they go to their 13 personnel packages when they put Darnell Washington in the game. Because Darnell is 300 pounds. He's a phenomenal blocker. And, he is somebody that defenses are going to hate to go up against this year. All right. And when you have an extra big body that's capable of blocking the way that Darnell is, that's instantly going to give the Steelers an opportunity to have mismatches in terms of the run blocking. It's going to give them extra opportunities for Jaylen Warren and even guys like Caleb Johnson and Kenneth Gainwell to be able to find open run lanes. And, they can just pretty much play bully ball out there, which is one of the reasons why I'm so excited to watch this team play in the run game this year. And then, honestly, Caleb Johnson, is kind of like the frosting on top, right? I think Jaylen Warren sets a nice floor for this run game, but the thing that could take it to an even higher level is if Caleb Johnson, who was super explosive at Iowa, can be really explosive in his first year here with the Pittsburgh Steelers, okay? I don't think it's necessarily a must for Caleb Johnson to be like a superstar level player for this team to have success, but if he can break out in year one and you can combine his early down presence with Jaylen Warren on later downs, like that could be one of the better running back duos in the National Football League this year. So even though I think Jaylen Warren is capable of being this team's number one running back, if needed, if you can get Caleb Johnson into a full-time early down role and he is explosive in that role, that could be a complete game changer for this offense that could take this unit to the next level. And then when it comes to the passing game, obviously Aaron Rodgers needs to have a bounce-back season. And as we've talked about extensively on this channel, I think that bounce-back season is very possible. All right, the last 3 years, things haven't really gone his way. He had a broken thumb on his throwing hand in 2022. Then he had an Achilles injury in 2023, and then a completely collapsing organizational structure with the Jets last year. None of those issues, at least to this point, have presented themselves here in Pittsburgh. Super stable organization, an offensive play caller that's not Nathaniel Hackett. Okay, he's not dealing with any injuries at the moment. And if he can stay healthy and this run game can get going and can open up some opportunities in the play action game for him, he still has his arm talent. He still protects the football at a world-class level. He is still somebody that can get the job done, in my opinion. He has to prove it this year to be able to, be named a top 15, even top 10 quarterback again. But I think that potential is very much still in there for Aaron Rodgers, even at 41 years old. And then another thing that we know, guys, is that this defense is going to be special if they can stay healthy, right? If you can keep specifically Jalen Ramsey and TJ Watt healthy this year, this defense, I think, has the depth and has the talent to be one of, if not the best in the National Football League and can carry them to victories similar to what it's been like in the last several years, right? This defense has been able to give up 20 or less points more than any other defense in the league over the last half decade, and I really do expect that trend to continue, so it even lowers the bar even further for Aaron Rodgers, this run game, this offensive line in order to win football games here in Pittsburgh this year. So the championship formula for the Pittsburgh Steelers is the O-line, then the run game, then the quarterback all hit. You need all three to be able to be a legitimate title contender this year, in my opinion. But the good news is that all three of those things are possible, just like we've talked about on today's show. The potential is certainly there with this young offensive line. You've got the run game where I think Jaylen Warren can be really efficient and really good, make people miss. And you got the advantage with Darnell Washington blocking on early downs. And then Aaron Rodgers, I think, still has the arm talent and ability to be able to operate this offense at a high level, not make too many mistakes, not take as many sacks as Russ and Fields did last year, and keep this team and this offense ahead of the sticks more often than we were in 2024. So I think everything is in front of the Pittsburgh Steelers here. They have a chance to be a legitimate title contender this year. Obviously, you need some things to go your way and for some things to go right, but the opportunity is certainly there for the black and gold here in 2025. So true or false, let me know down there in the comment section. The Steelers will become a legit title contender this season. Type T if you think that statement is true, or type F if you think that statement is false. Personally, guys, I'm just happy that we're going into the season with legitimate hope. We'll see if that hope ends up ending in a legitimate title run this year, but it's definitely better than going into the year with no hope at all. All right, so that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk. Thank you guys so much for stopping by today. If you want more in-depth Steelers videos like this every single day, click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.